Hey, how's it going? Irinax here, or I guess I should say Kritigri, that's how you know me. But this guy is Irinax. He is my Sith warrior, he is a juggernaut, he has just hit level 50, he has just finished the Sith warrior base game storyline, and I wanna talk about it. I'm gonna go full spoilers, and I kind of want to make one of these for each storyline that I play through, but no promises about playing them all back to back. I have a terrible attention span. As it is, I've played through the Jedi Knight storyline once in the past, and I started up a Sith Inquisitor. I was having a very good time, and then I got distracted by something else. So, yeah, but for now, I've finished Sith Warrior from start to finish, and I want to talk about it because I don't hear many people talking about the Sith Warrior storyline, and I had a pretty good time with it. So yeah, very quickly, as you can see, I made a Togruta. I think he looks pretty dang cool. You don't see too many Togruta around, and I guess that's because it's a premium class, but I do the optional subscription sometimes, and I used my credits to grab the optional store species, so that's why he's this guy. And you can see he's got some dark side corruption going on with the eyes, and so I guess we'll start there with what my intentions were for Irinax and kind of where I ended up taking him. My intentions originally to do a Sith Warrior playthrough were to do a light side Sith Warrior playthrough, just because that seems like an interesting concept to me, but it didn't really work out that way, and I'll show you now. Actually, I'm sitting at 1850 light side points and 2450 dark side points having finished this playthrough, and that's because I decided to kind of play it by ear and select options which felt right in the moment for Irinax. And while a lot of that was light side options, a lot of it was also dark side options. Irinax ended up being a fairly complex moral character in that my impression of him having finished the base game is that he's someone who doesn't suffer fools gladly. He genuinely hates the Republic, but he's not great with authority either. Although, again, full spoilers, having become the wrath of the Emperor, he is now gaining a newfound sense of responsibility and a place within the Empire for himself. But definitely starting out, I basically gave Barriss as much shit as I possibly could, partially because it was funny, and partially because, you know, like, the general understanding of the master-apprentice relationship is that you're going to overthrow them eventually, right? And so I never really gave him much respect. I never really considered him to be my superior. But Irinax also has this kind of self-assuredness about him, this sense of superiority over other people, and he's not afraid to choke someone out if they fail him too many times, you know? He's definitely Sith in that respect, he's definitely evil in that respect. However, he also isn't afraid to make benevolent choices. A lot of the time it's as the whims strike him. If he's in a good mood, he will spare someone. If it's gonna help him obtain his objective faster, he will choose the light side option. If it makes more sense to talk than fight, he's okay doing that, so long as, you know, the person hasn't personally insulted or annoyed him or upset him. But also, and this is where we're going to get to talking about companions, certain people brought out the best in him. So the first companion you get is Vet, and she's presented to you as a slave to do with as you wish, because the Empire is the Empire, and the slave collar came off ASAP. Unfortunately, she still seems to be wearing it, and I don't know how to get her to stop. She doesn't wear it in cutscenes. If anyone knows how, please let me know, because I've looked in the companion menu, and there doesn't seem to be, like, it's not an item that she's wearing. Hiding her helmet doesn't get rid of it, at least not that I remember trying, so that's annoying. But other than that, lore-wise, that came off as soon as possible. The thing with playing an evil or a dark side character is, you know, it's fun to be evil, but there are certain things, such as, like, you know, keeping a slave and torturing them for fun. I don't know, man. I just didn't feel like doing that, and neither did Irinax. He found it childish, perhaps, and so a bond formed between him and Vet fairly naturally over the course of their travels. I mean, first of all, so, yeah, the end piece of this is I married Vet. I wifed Vet. I don't think this is a good relationship choice for Vet. I think she's got a questionable taste in men. But as far as Irinax is concerned, they're very happy together. He's always treated her with respect to the point where You know, maybe she she gets treated better than anyone else in Irinax's life, and it's because he was falling in love with her, but it's also because he knows what it's like to be a slave. Maybe he doesn't believe in slavery, and so he's always treated her, if not as an equal, then, you know, as someone who he's not going to talk down to. I never told her to shut up or anything like that. And yeah, they fell in love, and Vet brings out the best in Irinax, and a lot of the light side choices Irinax made was because Vet was prodding him to be a little better. You know, he wasn't afraid to make decisions that she would disapprove of, and he did fairly frequently, but at the same time, he was always, you know, she was the one I usually had with me, and he was always aware that she was around, and maybe a lot of his crueler and worse instincts were curbed by her presence. So there's that. Then we've got Quinn. Oh, Quinn. He's our Imperial agent companion, and he's an ass kisser. He's always kissing up to me and being like, yes, of course, my lord. Whatever you say, my lord. And despite that, I did end up quite liking Quinn. I've heard he's the romance option for female characters. I wouldn't mind romancing him as a male character if that's available in a future DLC. I've heard that same-sex romance is available after the base game. However, that was before we continued the story, and despite treating this guy super well, allowing him to pursue his interests as much as possible, supporting him in those endeavors, and telling him he's a good officer at any opportunity, he betrayed me. He betrayed my ass, which would have made more sense perhaps if I was playing it a little bit more mean and cruel. But no, he was working for Barris all along, as we learn near the end of the story, and that doesn't sit right with me. That being said, I was very impressed that that was a story beat when it was revealed to me. I was excited. I love it when MMOs do things which you think shouldn't be possible because he's a companion, right? He's rooted in the companion system. I wasn't expecting him to have a turn like that. But then, unfortunately, I was disappointed by the fact that he is a companion, he does remain in the companion system, and therefore you can't punish him any further than just being mean to him. You can't kill him, and that goes against Irinax's character. I feel like he very much would have killed him. He would have felt bad about it, he would have anguished about it afterwards, about being betrayed, but killing him would have been the course of action Irinax would have taken, and that is not an option that was available to me, and that is something that I feel let down by in the game. And I think it would have been interesting if I was able to kill him and get rid of him as a companion due to that, you know, like a gameplay sacrifice for a moral choice to make. Like, that would have been pretty cool. But now there's just this awkward, like, yeah, you betrayed me, and the character I'm nurturing within Irinax is not the kind of character where I would forgive you for that. So I guess we're just on frosty terms now. Cool. Alright then. We'll see how that develops in future expansions and if I get any choices related to that. Up next we have Jace Wilsam, who is a important character around Act 2, I think it is. And I learned after the fact that you don't have to turn her to the dark side, but I did. Irinax decided, I'm gonna crack this Padawan. She's gonna become my apprentice. She's gonna join the dark side. I'm gonna have her kill her master. And in the moment, it felt delicious. But also, she became... I didn't really like her as a companion after the fact, because a lot of the writing for pure dark side in this game just kind of comes across as edgy for the sake of being edgy. You see a lot of this in Korriban and Droman Kaas. A lot of the Sith around there are just like, Darth Edgy Lord stabs you in the face because I'm a Darth. You know, like the concept of being a Dark Lord and having an apprentice and stuff. I think that works when there's two of them. When there's hundreds of them, the kind of culture that creates is a little edgelordy, little awkward. And Jace Wilsam, at least the dark side version of her here, kind of embodied that characteristic. And every time I spoke to her, she was always talking about, yes, I do what I please now, and it pleases me. I I bedded someone and then murdered them, and I barely remember it because of how drunk I was, and it was awesome. To which Irinax was like, nice. But then she's like, and I'm gonna go and chase down any Sith using the light side of the Force and murder them. And as Irinax is very much neutral and uses the light side of the Force fairly often, I just disapproved of most of those times, and because I kept saying like, I don't care, like, this is beneath you, you shouldn't, like, discouraging her from doing it. The problem is, this is her storyline and she's gonna keep doing it and she's gonna keep telling me about it. And it doesn't make sense for her to keep doing it and telling me about it, given that I keep discouraging her and I'm her master and everything. And so my relationship with Jace was just strained the entire time. We did bang, because I was like, sure, if I'm a Sith and I'm showing you the ways of passion and you want to bang and nothing matters, sure, let's bang. And then she was like, you have to break it off with Vet if we're going to keep doing this. And I went, enforced monogamy. Okay, nah. I ain't abandoning Vet for you, which she did not like. I kind of liked that, by the way. That was kind of fun, that part of the story. But other than that, the relationship between Irinax and Jace was just combative, and most of the time she remained on the ship. And because I liked Vet drawing out my kind of like better half as Irinax, and it just felt like there was too much friction, and it felt like it wasn't a natural relationship. So that is, I guess, a criticism I have. If you're gonna make Jace a dark side, you better be fully in support of all the dark side choices as well, because otherwise it's not gonna work out. I regret turning Jace to the dark side, and I think Irinax does too. Lore-wise, in my head, this is canon of just like they have this friction in their relationship as master and apprentice, and he kind of regrets bringing her on board in the way that he did. Next up, we've got Pierce, and to quote Saints Row, who gives a fuck about Pierce? I hate Pierce so much. I don't care. This guy kept telling me about how his dream was to storm a building called the Bastion, and he was part of the Black Ops, and he wanted to get his old Black Ops buddies together and go storm the Bastion. And bro, just do it. I don't care. Stop telling me about it. I have no input on this. I have no stakes here. I don't give a shit. But he kept telling me about it, and I just fundamentally dislike him. And Irinax puts up with him, I guess. Irinax kind of also doesn't really care, but sure, go ahead and do it, buddy. And he did, and that's his whole story, and it kind of feels like he's just here. And speaking of just being here, we have Brunmark, who we picked up on one of the later worlds. And Brunmark is a creature who's very much dedicated to vengeance, to the idea of, like, his clan has been dishonored, and if he doesn't seek vengeance, he will remain dishonored, and all this stuff. Yeah, Irinax is mostly just like, yeah, cool, I've got a very murderous furry friend now, this is cool. He just gives a thumbs up every time Brunmark says, I want vengeance, and he goes, yes, pursue that vengeance. And that's about the entirety of our relationship. I saw someone mention that the further through the base game campaign you get, those companions, end up feeling a little bit less fleshed out each time. And yeah, I think I agree. Brunmark is certainly one of the companions of all time. I don't really feel anything about him, if I'm being honest. But yeah, that's how I felt about all of the companions. As for the Sith warrior story in itself, where you kind of start out as a slave, you become an apprentice to Darth Barris fairly quickly, and then you're working your way with Darth Barris up through the ranks, and then, all that stuff. I've seen people mention, like, the Sith warrior storyline, it's kind of by the books, it's what you would expect. It's true, but it's also what I wanted out of a Sith warrior storyline, and also it did have enough twists to keep me engaged. I always knew I would end up being at odds with Darth Barris. I knew he would end up being a boss that I would strike down to gain power for myself, but I didn't know the intricacies of the plot around it. I didn't know when it was going to happen. I didn't know that Darth Barris was working to undermine another another Darth on the Dark Council, and how it would all tie up in the Republic versus Imperial War, all that stuff feels like a backdrop at the start of a campaign, and then by the end of it, you feel fairly instrumental to the war effort, such as, thwarting Darth Barris's attempts to undermine the war on Corellia, and then becoming the Emperor's Wrath and like meeting like the servants of the Emperor and stuff like that. That was all legitimately pretty cool. I enjoyed that, and it felt like Irinax was growing as a character from someone who was just, you know, escaping the bonds of slavery and just seeking power into someone who had a personal vendetta against Darth Barris, and now he's the Emperor's Wrath. He's a fairly important and well-regarded figure within the Empire, and what does that mean for him? And now he's got maybe this sense of duty and responsibility he didn't have before, and that might feed into some further light side choices in the future. And I really enjoyed it. I had a really good time playing through this campaign. I don't hear many people talk about the Sith Warrior campaign. I'm not saying it's the best one out there. I haven't played most of them yet, to be fair. But it's not the best RPG I've ever played, for instance, in terms of writing and campaign. But I had a really good time, and I think the crux of that was exploring Irinax's morality throughout it. You know, the fact that he ended up being kind of a neutral Sith Lord. He's not a light side Sith, he's not a dark side Sith, he's somewhere in the middle. And the fact that I was able to explore his morality through the story and the choices I made through the story made it so much more than the sum of its parts, I think. And yeah, it was very, very good, and I think that's all I've got to say on it. But I'm going to take Irinax through the expansions, I think, and explore the Empire side of the story through him. I don't know if I'm going to do that on every character I make, but he's going to be one of the first ones I do that on. And I'm so glad I made him. And I'm so glad I decided to just choose what was most interesting instead of sticking to either light side or dark side. Like, I think that's the way I'm going to go in the future. My characters will have a light side or a dark side temperament, but I'm not going to be afraid of picking a light side or a dark side, and when I have a companion with me as well, I'm not going to be too afraid of making them approve of every decision I made, which is an issue I had on my very first character, my Jedi Knight, Keris Sen. So yeah, that's how I'm going to keep playing this game moving forwards. Let me know if you enjoyed this video, if you would like me to make one of these for each campaign as I play through them, and each expansion as I play through them as well. I have played Rise of Cartels on my Jedi Knight, but that was a few years ago now. I don't really remember a whole lot about it, and I think it might be fun to explore that again on this character. So yeah, thanks for checking out this video. Let me know what you thought down below, and I will catch you in whatever I make next.